Well, hello, beautiful people. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Dating and Bright, the podcast. We are not affiliated or endorsed by Brightline Eating, and all content presented in this podcast represents our personal opinions and does not represent medical, nutritional, or psychological professional advice.
Is your coffee good?
I'll make it through one more
Oh,
episode.
mine is steaming. Do not drink coffee anytime soon. Is it okay to microwave this mug?
Probably.
Okay.
Do you know what we're talking
What are
about?
we talking about, Megan?
This is going to be the new show intro. Patty saying, "What are we talking about, Megan?" Do you know what we're talking about?
I do.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah.
You ready for this? Okay. Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of Dating and Bright, the podcast, episode 8. We're pretty sure.
We're 99% sure it's 8.
0.9.
Yeah.
Welcome back for all that are following along on our journey. We will be talking about many things, relationship and food and BLE related and all those things. And we have something that kind of combines all those things that we're going to talk about today. So affectionately, we're referring to this as the food fight episode.
That's strong. I mean, we had a little tiff.
I call it a
Tiff would be
spat.
strong.
A spat
It was a little hiccup. It's a little speed bump
around food.
around food.
It was around food. I don't know that it was entirely 100% about food.
It was not 100%. I mean, and that's the thing. Food, they say everything is food related, but this was like, it was food related that just was everything related.
Yeah.
I don't know where I was going there, but it wasn't just the food.
No, it
No.
wasn't. So I think we need to preface the conversation and the retelling of the story with the fact that we are working through a book together called Secure Love by Julie Manano. And it was recommended by, it's up there in the mantle. It was recommended by Robin, my friend, who is a therapist and
Who you know from the previous.
yeah, who you know from on the
episode.
Brightline podcast. But she recommended this book when I don't even remember what the suggestion was around, other than she's just like, this is a really good book for people who, in relationship, and and Patty and I were starting our relationship and moving in that direction. She was like, I just recommend this. So I brought it up, and
It's been instrumental. It's really.
yeah. And I think I think what the instrumental part of it is that number one, it's helping us understand ourselves and the way that we relate to one another. But it also gives us language and a time. I mean, we set aside a time every week to talk through. We read, we just reread it there in the moment together, and we stop when we need to stop and talk about what we need to talk about. And, that's the way that we've decided to work through. And it's not going quickly. I mean, we're only in part 2, and I think there's at least 4 parts, if not more.
So.
Yeah. So I just wanted to start there because a lot of the things that we're going to say probably about the way that this interaction happened are going to be based on our understanding of secure attachment, which is what Secure Love is about, is that we have different attachment styles, and the healthiest attachment version is secure attachment, and that is
Our goal.
the goal.
Yeah.
That is
I think I cut you off in the beginning because you were going to say something that you suggested reading the book and you thought I would balk at it.
Oh, well, yeah, that's the legend, right? Like that Robin gave the book to me, or she recommended the book. And I just have I'd never had a partner before that I could be like, hey, let's read this book together, and then be like, okay, let's do it. And so I held on to it for a little while because I wasn't sure how because I didn't want Patty to think that I was like suggesting that we had problems.
Right, that we needed help already.
Right, that we need help already, but that this just had come from a recommendation of this is a good foundation. It's good foundationally for your relationship. And it has been. And so that's,
Really has been.
And again, guys, this was not a big deal. Like what we're going to talk about. I mean, in the moment, it felt like a big deal, but it wasn't. this isn't like relationship ending stuff. This isn't like red flags. This isn't anything like that. But I think it's significant. And the reason why I suggested that we talk about it on the podcast is because I know a lot of people, number one, live with people who aren't doing BLE and might be able to relate to that, to this on that level, but also just that these are real problems that, real people have. So, okay, let's get into it. You want to start?
Okay. Thank you, Megan. Thank you for that. I guess we need to start with that we write down our food together every night. We do that together
Yeah.
as a family, and we look at what we want to have and we write it down. And my memory is horrible. We could talk about what we're having. It could be Sunday
That's why she
night.
asked me what we're going to talk about before every episode, guys. If you haven't noticed, she always says as we sit down, what are we talking about? And we will have had the conversation literally 2 minutes before about what we're going to talk about. Okay, go ahead.
And it's the same with food. Like we'll talk about it even as Sunday night. And I know every Monday is steak. And I'll be like, what are we having for dinner tomorrow night? And so it's kind of funny and at the same time a little annoying, I think, for Megan. But we had written down our food and then I write it down and I close the book. And I know this is a byproduct of the way I used to eat before I came here, was
Right.
that even though I ate the same 3 meals every single day, I wrote them down religiously every single day. And I mean, every once in a while I would have a different meal, but I always knew what I was having because it never changed.
Right.
And so when it's now that it's changing every night or every 3 nights or whatever, and
Well, and the thing is, there's always variables. So, like, that's the way that I cook, and the way that Patty has adopted her eating to is the way that I cook. Is that I normally cook a protein and vegetables for dinner, and that's what I'm cooking every night for dinner. And sometimes we're eating leftover vegetables from the night before. Sometimes we're like, okay, this needs to be eaten because it's going to go bad quicker, or whatever the case might be. And so it's always like, that's always the thought in my head, is like, how do we best utilize, the produce, and it's really produce related, like, good grief, like, I mean, the protein is
right.
never really a question, but like, it's really produce related about like, okay, what can we do, how can we best utilize the produce that we have?
So that we don't have food waste.
Yeah.
We don't, that is our ultimate goal, is to not waste any food. And I think we've done a really pretty good job. There were some that we,
And I will say that you used to have zero food, I mean, like,
zero.
zero food waste, because she was cooking for herself. She had everything, down to a T, as far as like what she needed to buy, how much she needed to buy, how long it would last, and on and on and on. And it's different when you're cooking for
A
a
family,
family and, two people, and we're buying
different
stuff at the
amounts of
farmers. Well, and
veg and
also we're
farmer's
buying stuff at the
market.
farmers market, and we're buying stuff at Costco. And it's just, anyway,
Which one is the farmer's market in? Is it October?
yeah.
Okay, good.
We have a
I'm gonna
couple
miss
more weeks
that.
of farmers
Yeah,
market, guys. So
yeah.
it's going to be a sad day. We might have to come on and talk about the farmers
We might
market.
have to. That might be a good
Yeah, that's a good
episode.
episode. I
Should add
like
that
it.
to it. Hey Siri. Oh, never mind. My phone's facing down. Okay. So I think I started. Why don't you take over now?
No, you didn't get anywhere.
I've set the stage.
She set the stage.
Okay, so we wrote down our food.
So we write down our food every night together. That is an important part of this.
And
So
this is no buy week. This is no spend week. So we had bought all of our produce for the week.
yeah, we had a lot. I mean, we had a lot. I mean,
Our fridges were
it
full.
was ridiculous. We have two refrigerators, and like, I was like, we went to the farmers market last Saturday, which is our last spend before we go into this no spending week. So this is part of our financial fitness. Like, what we're trying to work on is being more financially sound. And so we have chosen a week every month that we're going to calling a no spend week, so we don't spend any money. So we move into that week knowing that, and doing more bulk shopping. And so, like, yes, there was a bunch of produce, probably more than we normally have in the house. Both fridges were completely full. We came home from the farmer's market and we looked at that, like, where are we going to put all this stuff? Because we had just gone to Costco the day before. And so anyway, so we write down our food every night and we base that on, like we said, what needs to be eaten first. And because there was a plethora of things, I'm like, okay, so the shelf stable stuff, and I'll just go there, I'm going to name it. It was butternut squash. I'm like, we're going to leave the butternut squash because it will stay on the shelf. It was, it wasn't cut up or anything. So I'm like, it'll stay, it'll keep till
It'll
the
keep
end of the
longer.
week. And it's like, there's no reason, like, we needed to eat the broccoli and the green beans and the asparagus and those
And the
sorts of
corn is
things.
still sitting there.
Oh, that's true. We still
I
have
gotta
2 ears
get
of corn.
Are we doing that tomorrow night? Okay, we'll get over that later.
Anyway, so we had made the decision that we were going to do green beans. I said, okay, we'll do green beans because those need to get used up, and I'll just cook them when I get home from Pilates, because I had Pilates that evening, and I do like a 5 o'clock Pilates class, so I get home and we have dinner afterwards.
So
So,
she was at the Pilates class and
no,
no, oh yeah, you hadn't, so what, you went to the bus? Because you weren't here.
yeah, where was
I
I?
think you'd
Maybe I
gone to
went
the
to the bus.
bus
Yeah, to
and
pick up my
I,
oldest son for the
and you had
bus.
told me that Malcolm didn't want to go.
Yes, I
So
think
I
so.
stayed here and then
Yes.
yes, and then I was taking a nap before that because we hadn't been sleeping well or
Yeah.
something. And I was taking a nap
Well,
and she's like,
because my youngest comes in bed with us every night, so that's why we're not sleeping well.
yes,
We love him, but
yes,
he's not a
he's
good
all
bed. He's
elbows.
not a good bedmate.
So I got up and I was hanging out with Malcolm and I thought, oh, I'll help with dinner. And I went in the back and the first thing I saw was the butternut squash. And I'm like, oh, I can do that because I'm a horrible cook. I don't cook a lot, so I don't have a lot of skills around cooking. And
She's
that
not a
was
horrible cook. She just doesn't cook a lot. That's a better way to say that.
right. But I know how to cut up a butternut squash. So I'm like, oh, I will help. I will cut up the butternut squash because look, we have three of them. And obviously we need to eat them, not thinking that it's not on the menu for tonight. And there's no reason to cut up the butternut squash. And even the next night, we weren't going to eat it the next night, or
Mm,
we were?
I don't know.
Yeah, because that was Wednesday. So Thursday we did eat it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you'd already cut it up.
Yeah, which was a fun Thursday night. Anyway, is that the only reason we ate it? Was because
Mm.
I cut it up? Wow. Okay, so the butternut squash is gonna be is it gonna be a trigger for us for a
I
while?
don't know, but let's finish telling the story.
Okay,
These poor
so I
people.
started cutting it up and Megan came home and
I was like, why are you cutting up the butternut squash? I was like, that's not what we wrote down. And so for those in the program, well, maybe, I don't know if everybody does it this way, but when we write down our night food the night before, the reason why we write down our food the night before is so that we do not have to worry about decision making in the moment. And so a lot of what Susan describes in the book is talking about decision fatigue. And when, especially as a mom of littles that works full time and that sort of thing, it's like coming to dinner and already knowing what's going to be made and how it's going to be made and having all those decisions already made brings me peace. Like it brings me peace. And so walking into the kitchen and seeing her doing something other than what we had planned and written down triggered me. And it was a trigger. And I was just like, okay, what's going on? Like, why are you cutting
why
up
are you doing
why are
that?
you cutting up the butternut squash?
And I was seriously trying to help. And I got triggered in my own moment because I made a mistake and was called out on it and went into this defense mode and this self-critic mode that I go to very readily and easily, and which I'm sure I'm not alone in.
Yeah.
And so we kind of got into a negative cycle.
Yeah, so that's what Julie Manano talks about, and what we're reading about right now is the negative cycle. So when you have the other attachment styles, and anxious attachment,
Avoidant.
avoidant attachment, and disorganized attachment are the other attachment styles, the negative cycles tend to be caused by triggers, and then you trigger and it causes a rupture. And so that's the language now that we have to use around these things, which is great, because I was triggered because I felt like I was losing autonomy of my peace around my food because a change was being made
In the
that
spur of the
in the
moment.
spur of the moment, which, and it's funny because I've changed food before. Like I have done it before for various reasons. I mean, even one night we had a flood in the kitchen, and I had to pull the stove out so we couldn't cook anything. And so we had to change our meal that night, which was totally, I mean, it was
And that's a
fine.
sane choice. That was
It
a
was
sane choice. We
100%
could
the
not
same
cook
choice.
that
Yeah,
night.
we couldn't cook. We couldn't do what we had written down because we had no stove. The stove was now moved to the other side of the kitchen, and I wasn't cooking there. Anyway, long story short, it was messing in that moment. I felt like my autonomy had been removed.
Because let me say this, we write down our food the night before so we don't have to make decisions in the moment because you only have so much willpower in the day and we don't want to
Deplete.
deplete our willpower. So we make decisions the night before and we stick to those. And I was a huge proponent of that. Like I would not switch my food out for anything.
Yeah.
And I've gotten a little lax in that. But here's the thing is where was I going with that? I have no idea because you weren't in my head. But it's you commit to yourself every night to eat only and exactly what you wrote down.
Right.
And to change that is to it takes a blow at your integrity because you've committed to yourself and others, and I commit to 5 other people my food every
Yeah.
night to say, this is what I've planned for the next night, the next day, and I commit to you that I will eat only in exactly that. So yes, thank you. I can't hit the table. So to change it midstream for nothing, for no, no oven catastrophe or plumbing
Well,
emergency
and also it
or,
was like we have vegetables that need to get eaten. Like that was the other thing that I was thinking is
and
I'm
really the
like,
string beans, the
yeah,
beans,
they
they
needed
did
to
need to
be,
be
yeah, they need
the
to be
green
eaten.
beans. Yeah.
So I think that it's important. I mean, there's more to this and we'll get into that, but like the important thing I think in that scenario is that yes, we're two BLEers and I think a lot of people like are like, "Oh, you guys have it so easy because both of you do the program and it's easy because it's, you're doing it together and there's no NMF and then blah blah blah." Blah. But reality is there is NMF in the house because I have kids and we do have flour and things that have flour and sugar in them and that's not unusual at all. It hasn't been unusual for me since the beginning. And Patty is, adjusted to that so readily and so easily. But that there is another person and they're human, and it's like even if you have these kinds of scenarios, if you're living with somebody who doesn't do BLE and maybe doesn't even understand the food addiction, like I mean, and this went on for like the whole evening. We'll get into the rest of the story. It's like it could be even a larger trigger and a bigger negative cycle if they can't even understand the food addiction part of it, because Patty understands the food addiction part of it and understands, after we finally had a chance to talk about it, like understood why that was really triggering for me, to make a choice that we hadn't, make a
Make a
switch
change
that we hadn't talked about or decided on.
for no
So
sane reason, for no reason
yeah,
whatsoever.
yeah. So I was feeling triggered. I called her out. She was being triggered. And then I'm getting ready to leave. Like I'm getting ready to leave for Pilates. Like I come back in the house after I pick up it had to be bus pickup.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, I have to change clothes and I have to leave. And so I think you were just trying to repair everything and you leaned in for a kiss and I pulled away
Mhm.
because I was like, okay, it's not over, like it's not done and I'm not ready to to make up, and so and that really hurt you.
Yeah, I really spun from that
Yeah.
because it had happened before,
Yeah.
and I had said something that it was triggering to me, and it happened again, and I kind of just shut down.
Yeah. So you
I
tried to run away
tried to run away,
and I
and she didn't let
wouldn't
me.
let her
No.
because that is who we are. And we like stepped aside, like went out of the kids' earshot and everything. And I was like, okay, like, whoa, like we need to like slow this down. And I mean, we kind of talked a little bit about why,
Well, I went into fix it mode,
yeah.
and I think that's what you thought was happening when I leaned in for the kiss, is that I was just trying
Well,
to fix it and make it all better.
yeah. And I mean, that's how I felt. I felt like, oh, you're just trying to gloss over this. And it's like, it's not that, like, I'm not done. I'm not done with this yet. Like, I'm not ready to gloss over it and be done with it. And so the same kind of with the conversation, that short conversation we had was like, um, yeah, it felt like you were defensive and I was, accusing, and it wasn't going anywhere. And
Mhm.
so,
And you had to leave.
and I had to leave because I had to get to Pilates. And so I walked out by myself, which is significant because Patty always walks me out to the car when I leave, and she didn't. And it was like that. So another thing that Julie Manano talks about in the book is that it creates a rift and a distance in between us,
Eruption.
a rupture, and that was very felt in that moment because I was like, oh, I'm walking out by myself.
And I was so spiraled that I didn't even realize that
Yeah,
I wasn't walking her out. And that was significant as well, because I was in such a self-critical mode, and that I couldn't fix it, and that it wasn't repaired, and you were leaving. I didn't even realize.
yeah,
So I was stuck in it.
yeah. So one of the things that our mantras, and I think we've talked about this
I
on
think we've
previous,
said it once at
yeah,
least.
yeah, is that we say no matter what,
We know how this ends
yeah,
with us
we
together.
end up together. So, as I'm driving away and I'm just like, oh, there's this huge distance between us. I texted her no matter what, just because I was like, I don't know what's gonna fix it, but yeah, I just felt
Yeah.
like I needed to give some kind of.
And I don't think you saw right before that. I think I sent the green beans are very
You did.
veggie. And she came back with no matter what. And I was like, did she see that? Because I was even beating myself up for the green beans. Like I was not done beating myself up. I was in full beat up mode.
Yeah,
And not even realizing that I should have been beating myself up about not walking her out. I think if I would have realized that in the moment, that would have been just another reason to, you know, beat myself up.
yeah.
So,
So I went to Pilates. I came home and, we're here in it with the kids. Like, it's like, okay, we can't, we don't have
can't stop
time.
time
Yeah,
and
we couldn't have a conversation. I mean, not that we can't step into the other room and have a conversation, but I think we both knew that it was big enough that it was like, okay, this isn't just going to be a quick 5 minute like check in. Like, this is going to be a bigger conversation. So we said, like, table it till after the kids are in bed.
yeah. Did we say that specifically?
I think we said, yeah, I think we did. I think we
Yeah,
said we'll talk about it later tonight.
yeah. And we did, and we had dinner and we had, I'm sure we read that. No,
No, we
did we
played
read it?
games.
Yeah, we
No, we
played
played games.
games.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember what game we played? Did we play
I think we played Tapple. Yeah.
Okay, Apple. Just a good game. And then we talked about it when we went to bed.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things Julie Manolo talks about is the juxtaposition of if you have these ruptures and these negative cycles that occur.
So let's talk about this. That was the next morning. We hadn't read that
Oh,
part yet.
right.
So we did, I felt like we did an okay job. So what
We reconnected.
we reconnected. So
But we
that's,
didn't realize that in the time that this was the language that we had.
yes, yeah, because it was the next morning that we actually read about this. So we reconnected, but we didn't repair in that moment. And so, or we did some repair, but it wasn't, I think that
There
we
was
were
still
there was still
distance.
distance, right? And so in the next morning, which was Thursday morning, which is when we do our secure love time.
And both at different times we're like, oh, we're so glad tomorrow's Thursday.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
Because we
really
knew we
were.
really needed it. We read about these negative cycles, and triggers are really the negative cycles and the triggering and what happens in the trigger and how you react, it was a really significant thing. And the other thing that I really appreciated about what she wrote is that this doesn't make you immune. Having secure attachment doesn't make you immune to this sort of thing.
Conflict.
The conflict is still going to be there. It's just, how do you repair?
Mhm.
And do you repair? Because what she says is this negative cycle will happen and everyone will have the need to reconnect. And like, whatever that looks like, whether that's like, physical touch, like kissing each other, hugging each other, like, oh, we're going to reconnect. But
If
if you
you don't
haven't
repair.
repaired, then it puts in what she calls a morsel of distance
Mhm.
between you. And then that, as
Over time
yeah,
can grow and grow and grow if you don't repair fully each time, if you're just reconnecting because you need to connect and
right.
that need to connect is there. If you don't,
Primal, like it's
right,
primal, like it's part of
right.
our need as humans is to
And if you
connect.
connect without repair, then the distance increases over time, over weeks, over months, over years
Yeah,
until it's irreparable.
right. And so what we needed to focus on, which is what we did, I feel like what we did on Thursday morning is we focused on the repair
Yes.
of why we both had the reactions that we had and how we could do better in the future.
Mhm. And I think it went well.
Yeah. No, we definitely felt like the distance was closed at that point.
Yes.
I mean, it was palpable,
Yes,
the
it
feeling,
was.
yeah, how it changed, how it shifted.
Yeah. And then surprisingly, it was a really good day. I mean, family wise, and we had a great, you know, family dinner
Oh,
that
yeah.
was iconic. I hope it was
It's
iconic.
iconic.
Yeah.
It was iconic.
Yeah. And Megan's parents were over and we had family games and then
Oh.
adult games. And I mean, after the kids went to bed, we
Adult
played
games, we
card
played
games.
cards.
Yeah.
Nothing adult, nothing, that sounded nummy.
Yeah, it did. It did, but it wasn't.
No, it was fun. We had a really good day. It was a really good day, but that's also, you also said, which I think is really important to talk about, is the sine wave,
Mm.
and that there are ups and downs and that they will happen.
And knowing at the height and the low of each sine wave is that it's going to turn. Like, just because you're having a great day doesn't mean every day is going to be great in the future. And just because you're having a low day doesn't mean that every day is going to be low in the future. To know that that sine curve is going to turn, and that it will come back down. It will come back up. It's comforting to me. As a mathematician, I would call it the cosine wave, because it's the same thing periodically, just, shifted over. Yeah, but just
Sorry.
knowing that it's gonna turn.
We were talking about math. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
but it's not the tangent curve, but the tangent curve just goes off into infinity and it
Oh,
doesn't turn and it doesn't
no,
come back
no, we
around.
don't want that.
Yes, no tangential curves here.
Got it.
So we want a wave, and I think we're securing that.
Yeah. So that is the work. I mean, I will, in the show notes, I will link to, I think Julie Manano has a website. We follow her. I mean,
She has a
we
podcast.
yeah, she's a podcast. There's a website, there's a book, obviously, and there's an Instagram account that we tag often on our Instagram account. So if you follow us there, you can find her too. But I'll definitely tag her up in the show notes. And
Really, we could not recommend the book more.
no, and I think it's
Single, if you're single, if you're
yeah.
partnered, if your partner, if your relationship is suffering, if your relationship is flourishing, I think it's a really good book to read. Even if your partner is not willing, I think it's good.
Well, I think it's a good thing. It's a good way to understand, because like that's the thing, is if you understand what your attachment style is, and you work towards secure attachment, but you probably aren't starting in a securely attached place. You're probably
What
starting.
percentages are there? Did she talk
I
about
think
that?
she did. I don't
Hmm.
remember what they were, but I feel like well, no, she talked about the percentages of men versus women in each kind of
Mm,
attachment style. Maybe she didn't.
I don't
I don't
know.
know. But
Interesting.
just learning about why you may have the attachment style that you have, and then how to work through, those issues, and hopefully come to a place of secure attachment, because that is the goal. And we will fight to be attached and connected no matter what. I mean, that's our
And
human nature
exactly. Exactly. No matter how you're going to be attached, it depends on just your style of attachment. And that's what we're trying to, pass on generationally, that we want the boys to be securely attached,
as well.
for the most part. I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be perfect all the time.
Well, and that's what she talks about too, is she's like, just because it doesn't mean your parents are perfect. Like, that's not what it means, having a secure attachment. And I feel like my parents did a really good job, and I still have anxious attachment. I still have avoidant anxious attachment, whatever. Like, it's like, it doesn't, I don't think it matters necessarily how good your parentage was. There can be other um not circumstances, influences that can change your attachment style as well. But showing up for your kids, making them feel seen and heard, gives them more a chance of having more secure attachment.
Right.
So
And
that's
that's what we're headed. That's where
that's
we're
what we're
headed.
trying to do, is to make sure that they understand that their feelings are valid, and that they can feel their feelings, and that it's all
Yeah,
it's
that
all
someone
good.
will be there to heal, to see
See
their
it.
emotions and to hold them and hold
Yeah.
space for those
And that not
emotions.
everything needs to be fixed. So
Yeah,
yeah, that was a hard one.
it was. It was. But I think it was important to talk about,
Yeah.
food wise and relationship wise, and going forward.
Yeah, for sure. And again, not relationship ending, not, huge, tidal wave of anything, just we thought it was important to share, because it was food related. And for those in the program that may be dealing with people who are not in sync with them, that it might help to understand a little bit better why people do the things they do.
And I think that we will forever call this the butternut squash incident.
Oh, instead of the food fight, we're gonna call it the butternut squash incident. Okay. Anything else?
I think that's it.
Okay. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. We will see you on the next episode.
Next episode.
Have a beautiful day. Bye bye.
Bye. Went well.
I think.
I do.
Okay.
You?
You feel honored in it.
You do?
No, do you?
I do. Do you?
Yeah.
Good. No matter what.
Yeah. And that's the show. Thank you for tuning in. If you would like to contact us, you can email us at pattyandmegan@gmail.com or hit us up on any of our socials. Have a beautiful, bright day.